Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
The great.
Stephanie Young. Welcome.
Good morning, Stephanie.
Hi, guys.
How you
Hi.
feeling?
She's the exec. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Not gonna say you're the executive director of Michelle Obama's When We All Vote.
I am.
What does that mean exactly?
When we all vote?
Yeah.
Well, it literally...
On everything, the
You ask how
title.
she feeling first?
How are you? I saw her earlier. I'm sorry. How are you, Stephanie?
You know, I'm feeling okay. Tomorrow or today is going to really be a big day. And I know that we've all heard this, but democracy literally is on the ballot. So I can't help but to be a little nervous. However, over 4 million Americans have voted. That's over 1 million more who voted in 2018, the last midterm election. So I'm a little optimistic as well. Nervous and optimistic, but I'm feeling good. When we all vote, for those of you who don't know, as Charlamagne mentioned, is Michelle Obama's nonpartisan voting initiative. Our whole mission is to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in every election by closing the voting race and age gap. So what does that mean? That means that we focus on young people. That means that we focus on communities of color at large. But we also pair kind of, on the ground organizing. How are we building people in community to know that they can take action in this space? But then on the flip side, how are we infiltrating culture like the Breakfast Club? How are we having our voice in the mix of the most popular artists and athletes and influencers so that you are getting some sort of message consistently year-round about voting and its importance?
What are some of the pros and cons of social media when it comes to voting?
Well, there's a lot of pros and there are also a lot of cons. I know
Literally, con artists.
y'all have heard the word disinformation, which is just another word for lies. And unfortunately, with social media and the rise of social media and the way in which we interact with each other, disinformation spreads so rapidly. And so, a lot of the barriers when it comes to voting is people just not having enough information at their fingertips.
And also people getting attacked if you express your point of view, I think, on social media, or you endorse somebody and then all of a sudden, people are
Ruthless.
disgusting.
They are, and they're scary. And I've been on all the sides. But, what we try to do is give you just the bare bones details. How do I get registered? How do I make a plan to vote? What does that look like? We don't tell you who to vote for, but
Who's on the ballot?
Who's on the ballot, right? If you go to whenweallvote.org, you can literally see all of those things. You can look at your ballot because it's not a pop quiz. You can read about all the candidates, all the ballot provisions, all of the things, but also you can figure out how to make a plan to vote. And we know that when people actually plan to vote, they're more likely to vote, as opposed to just, waking up on election day and trying to figure stuff out. Because with all the voter suppression that's happened over the last couple of years, there's been over 500 bills that have been either introduced and or passed. So places like my home state of Georgia, Florida, Texas are making it harder and more challenging to vote. You can vote in Texas with a gun license that you can just get because you don't have to have a background check, but you can't vote with your student ID from Prairie View. So, obviously this is very targeted. It's targeted towards Black people. It's targeted towards other people of color. It's targeted towards young people. And it's purposeful because voting is such a powerful tool.
Now, how come When We All Vote can't talk about who they would want you to vote for, especially when you say the stakes are so high and democracy's on the ballot? How come you just can't say, look, this is who you should vote for?
Well, I will always say you should vote for people at least who believe in democracy, right? Because that's what this country is supposed to be. But because we're nonpartisan, because we're a nonprofit organization, it's our tax status. So the IRS deems what is a partisan issue. So they say abortion is a partisan issue. They say climate change is a partisan issue. They say gun violence is a partisan issue. Criminal justice is not a partisan issue. Some
people might say voting is a partisan issue.
And voting is not. It is the bedrock and the foundation of democracy. Democracy literally means of the people or majority rule. And you don't have a democracy if everybody doesn't have equal access to the ballot box. And I've been thinking about this so much because folks are always talking about, well, it doesn't matter. Well, it does. And if you look back and think about how this country was created, right, voting was only for white landowning men. And it was only when the 15th Amendment came about in the 1800s, we're like, all right, we're going to give it to these 4 million freed African Americans. So what did they do? We voted at high numbers. We had over 20 members in the Senate and Congress. And literally in 1870, Congress said, oh, hell no, we're not going to do this. we don't want these people voting. We don't want them having political power. And we had congressmen from South Carolina and senators from South Carolina. We had so much going for us politically right during, at the beginning of Reconstruction, 1870. They pulled it all back and said, you can basically be discriminated against based on your background, your race, all of the things, right? And it was only in 1965 when Michelle Obama was 1 year old that we were protected. So we only have had, a little over 50 years when it comes to full voting rights.
You just aged the first lady crazy, by the
Sorry.
way.
Well, she's beautiful
Crazy.
and black clearly does not crack.
There you go.
But she's just showing how recent, really showing how
messing with
recent
her. Yeah.
that it's been since we've been even allowed to vote.
Yeah. So if you think about it, if we have been consistent over these last, 50 years, how much voting power we actually could amass, right? How much our government would look different because you have representatives that look like you, right? Who have life experiences as you, right? So right now we have so many people who are representing us who don't know anything about us. And not only that, they don't think our life matters. They don't want to educate our children. There's so many different factors that could be going against us, considering the people that are responsible for our lives. And the majority of elections actually happen at the state and local level, and that's what the midterms are.
So what do you tell people that are scared to vote? Like some people, it's they know it's going to be cold. They can't wait out on lines because they won't have food for hours.
Yeah.
People that can't get to the voting place because they might be old and can't drive.
They might be in Arizona where people are standing at the polls with guns to deter them from voting.
Absolutely. So what do you tell those individuals? And is there any protection for those people?
There is. Look, voting early and making your plan to vote early, that's why it's so important, so that you aren't standing in line on election day, so that you do have the things that you need, so you can get a ride. Lyft is giving out a discount code through us. You can go to When We All Vote, obviously, and check out that code and get a ride to the polls. Also, we really encourage people to vote together. So what does that mean? It means like you're not doing this by yourself, but you're going with your neighbor, your friend, your sorority sister, your frat brother, whoever, and you all are going together, your family, so that you have obviously some backup. But most importantly, the lawyers committee is around literally 24/7, 7 days a week. You can call them 1-866-OUR-VOTE. They are literally ready to take your call, help you fight any type of voter suppression issue that you might encounter if you do, and if you feel like something's happening that's wrong, you don't leave. You stay there, and don't let someone say, nope, you got to get out. Nope, you stay right there.
Even
and
if
you
they
call
got
that
a gun?
number. Well, if they have a gun, please call 911.
Yeah, go outside.
Don't
just call.
Don't threaten yourself, right? Yeah. But I will say those instances, that we saw in Arizona, those are the minority, right? It's not the majority. And it is used to scare us. Voter suppression it manifests in a multitude of ways. It manifests through the mental, that, okay, my vote doesn't matter, and then through the physical, through either aggression or these laws and these barriers that we see. So we have to understand this is set up, right, to put fear in us and to make us question things.
Right.
Don't do it. Don't do it. And that 1-866-OUR-VOTE number is so incredibly important.
What's the biggest problem you've been seeing with people, trying to vote? What's the biggest thing?
It's misinformation. It's just not like the research showed us, like in 2018, so the last midterm election, where we did see an uptick in voting, was that people literally said, well, I didn't know, young people especially, nobody asked me to vote, which is interesting. But if you think about it, it's either a politician asking or it's an organization like ours. So that's why we have to reach people kind of where they are. And it's literally, I don't know how. I don't know how to get registered. And I don't feel like I know enough information. We talk about how this is the most important election of our lifetime, every election, but every election is the most important election of our lifetime, because when we don't, vote, someone else is showing up and their values are being represented and not ours. And people have some self-esteem issues when it comes to confidence issues when it comes to going into the ballot box and making a smart choice. And that's why we partner with organizations like Ballot Ready, where you can literally look up everything on your ballot. And nobody knows everything when you go into the voting booth anyway. So
that's why you go prepared, like you said, and you can get everything at When We All Vote. You can see if you're registered to vote, or you can register if you're not.
Yeah, and you can do same-day registration in some states too.
Yep, and you can see also who's on the ballot, like you said. So you go prepared, do your research, information on who's running, so you know who you would like to vote for, see where you're supposed to go vote. And
that's right.
All of those things. Now, I wanted to ask you a question, Stephanie. Earlier, we had a debate.
Okay.
This was about Oprah endorsing Fetterman over Dr. Oz. Now, Envy, you want to state your position?
I don't know what this has to do with voting. This has to do with friendship, in my opinion. But go ahead, you can continue.
I just want to get an opinion, as you know, from Stephanie, what she thinks.
Yeah.
And so Envy feels like Oprah should not have come forward and endorsed Fetterman over Oz in Pennsylvania because that's her friend. You know, they've known each other a long time. She got him his start in television, and so they have a history together. But then I think for us, some people were feeling like, well, no, she should actually go ahead and say whose politics she's more aligned with. What are your thoughts?
I want to tell you, Envy went to Hampton too, just like you. So,
I know he went to Hampton.
Think about this.
I did go
That's the first thing I said when I spoke to her. I said, what about you?
I went to parties where DJ Envy was DJing, but we do not know each other.
Wait
but
a minute, Steph. Now you dating yourself.
I know. Look,
She was a freshman. He was a super senior.
We know Envy.
I was in pre-college, actually.
She was visiting.
No, in all seriousness, look, I mean, taking my hat off, and this is my personal opinion, like, she gave him his start, so she knows him best. And, you know, look, the stakes are high all around this country. At the end of the day, like, we need people who are running for office who actually live in the states that they're running in. We need people who actually care about the people and not about power. So that was her personal opinion on a person that she knows very, very well. And Oprah doesn't do silly things. She's very thoughtful. So,
or maybe she didn't really know him like she thought she did.
Yeah.
And people change.
Yeah.
And if you see Trump endorsing somebody, maybe you need to go counteract that. I think. Maybe.
I mean, look. At the end of the day, she knows him. People change. All of the things. And look, with when you have that much responsibility as a person because of who you are and the clout that you have that Oprah has. To me, like, she does have a responsibility to say something. And I think we oftentimes look at politics as this like thing on the side we really don't want to dip into, really don't want to talk about because we don't want to make people uncomfortable. We don't want to offend people. But this is our government. This is our democracy, and we have to take more ownership of it. So I appreciate it.
I wanted to ask you about the approach of when we all vote. Like a year like this year, and they always say that a sitting president. Always the party of the sitting president always loses the midterms. Yeah. So how do y'all approach it knowing that is a fact?
I mean, well, first, I mean, since we're nonpartisan, since we're not, you know, this is not Joe Biden's we all vote. This is an organization that stands alone at all times. What the outcome will look like on today doesn't necessarily matter to us. It matters that people are making their voices heard. It matters that more access and opportunity is taking place. It matters that, folks are actually voting. So the way in which we approach it and talk about it when it comes to messaging is thinking about this midterm as your local election. There's governors, there's, some mayors in places. There's school board chairs that we know PACs have spent millions of dollars into trying to manipulate that process so that our children aren't getting an education that they're worthy of. So, we want people to focus on the midterms as really their local election. These are the people that are going to be representing your interests. And on top of that, like, there's 27 secretaries of state, and people don't know that position. They don't understand that is the person who is going to run your elections going forward. And some of those people are election deniers. So what does that mean? That means that folks are setting up for really, a bad situation or scenario when it comes to 2024 and certifying that presidential election. So what I like to say is that voting is an investment. It's the investment that you make in yourself, in your family, in your community, in your city, state, country, all the above, in this democracy. And just like we put money, in the bank every month, or we're supposed to, that acquires over time, right? You see a difference, just like you go to the gym or you don't. When you want that summer body, you have to go in, right, consistently to get that six pack or whatever you're trying to do. You don't go to school and be like, you know what, I'm done in kindergarten, give me my degree. You don't go to Hampton the first day and be like, I'm done.
Well, Envy might have.
Well, yeah, possibly. Who knows?
Envy definitely might have.
But you can't. But you can't do that. You can't do that. And we don't do that anywhere else. We don't go to church or synagogue or mosque one day and be like, thank you, God, I got all I need from you. Never coming back here again. You make that investment over and over and over again. And voting is not instant gratification.
We are in an instant gratification era, though.
We are, but we got to get out of that.
I agree.
It's up to people who know better to understand that.
Now, let me ask you a question, right? With voter turnouts been high for the last couple of years, so people always a little discouraged, right?
Yeah.
They say it is so high. We came out in record numbers, but some of the changes that they want haven't been implemented. So what do you say to that? And I just want to say this. There's only one person here that's never went to college that got his degree for one term.
I didn't get my. First of all, I got an honorary degree from South Carolina
Whatever
State
you wanna call it.
University because of the work I have put in throughout my life.
Amen.
Okay.
Okay.
He went there one time.
No, that's my mother's alma mater.
That has nothing to do with you.
Yes, it is.
You didn't go there.
That's my mother's alma mater, and I donate money to them all
My
the time.
brother-in-law graduated from South Carolina State.
Really? Oh, okay. What year?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh.
Okay, continue.
My sister's like 14 years older than me, so you can do the math. But look, I get it. It is that investment that you are making in people who are supposed to be advocating for you. But, change is unfortunately slow. It is incremental. I think that we have to recognize there's a lot of other forces in the mix. So I mentioned PACs briefly, but, billionaires have put over $800 million into the midterms. They put millions of dollars into those offices for the school board chair.
But you would see why it would be discouraging.
I get it. But there's legislation like the For the People Act that helps to take out money from our politics. There's organizations like In Citizens United that are really working to regulate these things so that a billionaire is not making decisions for you. However, what is everybody afraid of? High voter turnout. And we see that, and that's been happening year after year. So when President Obama was elected for the second time in 2012, what did the Supreme Court do? Oh, there's no more racism. Let's gut the Voting Rights Act. Nobody needs protections in, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Texas. Y'all do whatever you want to do. And then what do they do immediately? Crazy voter ID laws, crazy, restrictions on voters, all of these different things, right? So that concerted effort year after year after year after year that only increased after we had major voter turnout in 2020 tells you that no matter what they put up, right, no matter what is happening, no matter how slow progress might be, they know progress is coming. They know that it's here. Gen Z and millennials together are the largest voting bloc. We're bigger than baby boomers at this point. So if we all actually voted, everything would look different. And they know that. So I don't want us to get discouraged on the fact that, like, what we want to happen right now isn't happening, right? I think we have to look at this as a long game. And I like analogies. So if you think about the NBA Finals, they're playing every game so they can get to that. The NBA Finals for us is a more just, equal, equitable America. And we have to play in every single game, and every game is an election.
I just think it's frustrating sometimes for voters because it's like, we put these people in office and we want them to do things like protect voting rights. And they don't, and then it always falls in the laps of the voters, and y'all have to come out and it's like the only offense for voter suppression is to have the highest voter turnout in the history of elections.
That's not the only offense. You're right. That's not the only offense. I mean, there are people who are fighting against this, right? And they are in office in places that sometimes are gerrymandered, where I know this is not nice, and this is a hard thing to swallow as well, where politicians are able to pick their voters because of how they've drawn the congressional maps or their district maps. But there literally is legislation right now that the House has already passed, that the Senate has not taken up, that would address all of these things. So the more we all understand that, the more we're all, paying attention in the mix. I hate saying do your research because we're not researchers, but at least
Google.
Yes, go to when we all vote.
Go to when we all vote.
That's what research means, though. Google now.
It does. It means Google. I have people like, I've done my research. I'm like, are you a researcher? No, you're not. But no, in all seriousness, like, we need to take accountability on our own to make sure that we know what's happening, so that we understand that there are a lot of solutions. There are a lot of solutions to the challenges that we're facing. But it is going to be up to us at the end of the day to show up. And look, Chris Rock said it great. He said, when kids are sleepy, they start acting real crazy. And I know, obviously, you guys have kids, so you know this. I'm sure you have nieces and nephews like I do. Like, they start acting like lunatics when they're tired. They're screaming, they're crying, they're laughing, they're dancing, they're falling off of stuff. I feel like that's what the country is doing right now. Part of the country, because they know that it is changing so rapidly when it comes to what this country looks like, who is going to be in power, all of those different things. So we're seeing a gigantic temper tantrum. Literally every single day we're living through one, because the other side really is coming.
I think it's both sides, though, because I agree on that side, but then you got that woke side who needs some goddamn sleep because they've been up too long, and they starting to act a little crazy, too.
Well, look, I mean, everybody has a solution to every problem. I also think that, on our phones are causing so much anxiety. And I mean, I have to put it down. It's overwhelming. So we are overwhelmed with too much information, not the right information at times. And, like, when you turn the news and something bad is happening every single day. So we have to take care of ourselves, but we have to recognize and know and feel that we're transitioning. We're transitioning out of an old America, and we're deciding what do we want America to look like going forward.
What's interesting is both sides agree on the fact that democracy is at stake. You can listen to right-wing media, you can listen to left-wing media. They both are saying the same thing. They're both saying the death of democracy as we know it is upon us, but they're just pointing the finger at each other, right? So why is this election really that? Because it feels like every year or every other couple of years they're making us vote out of fear. Why is this election really that?
I mean, it's that, and I don't know. I mean, I don't hear a lot of people saying democracy is at stake besides
Oh, no. People, if you watch Fox News, which I enjoy doing, by the way.
I mean, that's not.
They do.
And it's not news. I just have to say that out loud. It's just not. It is a propaganda machine. Right. And that's another challenge. Like, for a healthy democracy, you actually have to have a healthy media, healthy news services that are actually giving you accurate things and facts. And
depending on what you watch, it can really pollute your mind.
Completely. And it's void of fact. And facts are good. But look, I think I mentioned the 27 secretaries of state. We have people that are running for office all over this country who do not believe the 2020 election was legitimate. Why? Because a person that they don't like won. Right. So if we start moving in we're not an autocracy, we are a democracy. So if we start moving in that direction where I don't like who won, so I'm going to cause some challenges and issues, then
I'm going to attempt to coup of this country.
Yes,
like on January 6th.
I'm going to have a violent insurrection. I'm going to be violent, period. Like, that is not that. I mean, that's a clear line that we have not really been in. I know as Black people in this country, we've been terrorized for centuries, right? And other people of color as well. So we've experienced political violence. And we've seen political violence, but now it has become mainstream in a way. So we are at a tipping point, because if we are electing people to office that don't believe in democracy, then you can't have a democracy. And these are people who are going to determine what a state election process looks like. So if you can get registered, how you vote, who's eligible, all of these different things. So it's just not the same. And I know that we have the sky is falling effect every election, but we are at a great point of transition that, if we do not have the right people in office that support us, to support our values, whoever we are, all of these things, whoever we claim to be and actually believe in democracy, then we're in for a rude awakening. That is the difference,
Stephanie, you also, When We All Vote, has partnered up with a dating app. Black, and it's no voting, no bucking.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. I was expecting this.
Oh, Lord.
Well, first off, When We All Vote has many partners. So that is not our video, point blank, period. So we did not say, hey, do that. And we did not support it financially or anything like that. What we do through our partnerships.
But it does go to When We All Vote when you click.
Totally, and I'm going to explain that. But let's just think about this, in all seriousness. If you look at the work that we do, why in the heck would we go from what we do, which is really soft and sweet, to that?
No voting, no bucking.
It makes absolutely no sense.
And what is bucking?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
They couldn't say F, so they used the V so they could use it.
Oh,
So
it's a cute slogan.
I thought that was some new shit.
So let me be super clear again. That is not our video, okay? Let me look at the camera.
So
It's
no
not our
voting,
video.
no bucking is not true.
It's not our video. So, but BLK is a partner, and they became a partner this summer. And they're a part of Match. They are the largest Black dating app. One thing that they decided to do, which was really cool, which was to say, okay, we could make people match based on the issues that they care about. So you care about healthcare, you care about criminal justice, you can match with people. They used our election center for people to get registered and vote. That's how we partner with people. Now, when you go to a concert, right? Okay, you're going to go to a concert, you're going to see whoever you're going to see. The moment you click, okay, buy tickets, it takes you to Ticketmaster. Right. That's the technology to get the ticket to go to the concert. We were the technology that they used
to get people to book.
To get people to vote.
To get people to vote, right?
Oh, okay.
But that was not, and our partners create their own stuff.
Gotcha.
They do. We partner with so many people and they create their own things. And at the end of the day, it's not something that related to me, but I was in the audience, and I wasn't. We weren't checking the box off.
Oh, how would you feel if you were laying next to somebody and you're like, "Who are you voting? When are you going to vote?" Oh, I don't do that.
Yeah,
I don't believe in that.
I can tell you, I don't do that either. I don't.
This is getting awkward.
You don't do what?
buck.
Buck? Is that what you what?
Oh Jesus! No, that's not what I'm saying. It's like I like people who have brains, and
Okay.
not saying if you don't vote you don't have a brain, but no. In all seriousness, like you have to vote.
You got to vote. Yeah, we got to vote. Why,
Like, how did we get here?
How do we get here?
well, on another note, why do Democrats think sometimes the only way to get voters engaged is through those type of campaigns?
It's through bucking.
Well, I don't know if it's Democrats.
Yeah, I think I've seen all kinds of
Like-
different campaigns that I'm like, what's going on here?
I think
I
it's
think
more
both sides.
insulting when it's us though, because
But-
it's black and we like that's the only way y'all think y'all can reach us.
But I think you have to remember that was an app. That was a dating app. That was not a political party. Like what have you seen what the Democrats actually have put out or what Republicans actually put out? Like you have to watch that to see what they actually put out in the world. But I can think of multiple caricatures of black people that elected officials have put out
Some raps.
consistently, like because, for whatever reason that they feel like they are trying to reach or appeal to our audience or think that we're a monolith, like they were appealing to their audience about dating. That's them. So like, I think it's unfair, and I don't think it's right to say that they're not the Democratic Party.
How do you see if stuff like that works? Like, is there a gauge?
Is it? Well, I mean, like it all boils down to the numbers. I know that they've
Click
registered.
through and see.
I know they've registered a good amount of people.
Okay.
I can't say from that one piece of content, but again, that's not the type of content that we would create. And I think, look, we're so diverse. Everybody is attracted to something different, right? Yeah. And so I think what is unfair for us to do at times is say that if someone saw that video, okay, and they were like, oh, I'm going to think about voting now. I don't know why that's a bad thing.
It's not.
You got to go to multiple places and meet people where they are.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and that has to be everywhere. If
Yeah.
you could be everywhere, you should.
Yeah,
We've seen people coming out with rappers. We've seen people coming on stage. So wherever the people are.
I guess
yeah, and we again, like, everybody has a brand, everybody has a style. Like that's not us. But like if that appeals to your audience, that appeals to your audience.
I guess the confusion for people sometimes is like, democracy is at stake. This ain't really speaking to the urgency of the moment.
I think it's
an ad like that. Yeah.
Look, I mean, people take cheesy, cheap shots, all the different things.
But it gets attention, and I think sometimes even just being able to break through, because sometimes it is hard to break through.
It is extremely hard to break through, and the word civic engagement is boring as hell. No, when you say civic engagement, people turn their heads down and they're
You could
looking
have
around.
a town hall and barely anybody shows up.
No, I mean, like, all the work that we do at When We All Vote, we're like begging for people to pay attention to the work that we're doing consistently, right? But we do have a really good following, a good base of folks who are into this. But this is hard work. It's challenging holistically. But I think that, like, we try to oversimplify stuff. Like, oh, look, that's what Democrats or that's what Republicans do. It's deeper. It's much deeper and much more nuanced than we think.
How can people support? How can they make sure they support you guys, whether it's financially or just being out there, whatever they need?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways. You can literally just donate to us at whenweallvote.org. You could also, if you want to volunteer in your community, we have some really cool programming and organizing work. So you can become a voting squad captain, where you guys could be your own squad, where you make a plan to vote together. You actually physically go vote together. We also host parties at the polls. We had over 200 parties at the polls this year, where community organizers with us and partners literally hosted celebratory events at polling places. And
Are they allowed to do that still?
Yeah, you can.
Everywhere?
You
I
can.
I never know
but
what's
not-
allowed and what's not allowed.
Like, you can get food or something in some places.
Georgia, you
give
can't hand out
jackets or
water in line. But
What?
Yeah, it's silly. But what we can do is you can be a certain distance from a polling place and you can host a celebratory event. You can.
Good to know. Okay.
You can. So we did that all over the country. I just was in Philly for what we did there. You can also, if you're in high school, we have a program called My School Votes. Our kids aren't getting civics education, so we're trying to teach kids how to not just get registered, but how to advocate for the issues that they care about and how to build campaigns. We also have an HBCU program called Voting Squads as well. It was a Voting Squad Challenge. Hampton has one, where a lot of those kids are actually hosting events today on Election Day. So, like, essentially, like, I want us to be the home for, if you want to do this work and you don't want to be attached to a candidate or a political party, you can come in and do this work with us, and you can empower your community to get involved.
How come we don't focus on everything after voting, like showing people how to actively participate in democracy after the fact?
That's one thing that we do.
Okay.
So we're on 365. Like, we don't just like fall down after an election. And that's why we have, like, I think the poor participation that we have had, because we're not consistently in the community. So one thing that we're definitely going to do is really focus on voting rights. And we already did that. I mean, this past year, we had folks advocating to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act, calling their senators, emailing them, tweeting them, doing all of the things. We wrote letters. We had New York Times ads. We did all of that, and we had our partners and our organizers work with us on that. So people are doing work 365 days of the year and advocating for the issues that you actually care about. You just need to know who those people are, and we partner with a lot of them to help you make those connections.
Based on early voting and voter registration, what type of voter turnout do you think we'll have?
I think we're going to have some excellent voter turnout. I mean, we have over 4 million people have already voted. I mentioned that at the top. And the difference between this midterm and 2018, that's 1 million votes already. So people are energized. I think people know what's happening. I think everybody's exhausted. I know I'm exhausted. I mean, it's like crisis after crisis, and it's challenge after challenge. So people are tired, but people are still showing up in spite of everything that's happening. So I think that we're going to have really strong voter turnout. I don't know what the end of the day is going to look like. There could be runoffs, but it's going to be a good turnout.
Where do you vote? You vote in Georgia?
No.
Oh, okay.
I live in LA now.
Oh, got you.
But I was a Georgia voter.
Because you're from Georgia.
Yeah, I'm from Atlanta.
And I know Herschel Walker's your uncle, so.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Not telling you who to vote for or not to vote for.
No, but I.
But again, you guys, all the information on whenweallvote.org, right? Is it
whenweallvote.org.
So if you aren't registered to vote, or you're not sure if you're registered to vote, you don't know where your voting poll is,
you can check your status.
You can check there. Yep, see your status.
You can also
register.
find where you can register same day, like in California, like in Michigan. There's many states that you can register same day, and you know what to bring to the polls too, like your ID, all that good stuff.
And last thing, if folks say, these politicians don't do anything for us, why should I vote? What would you say to them?
Every issue you care about is connected to voting, whether it's, your access to an abortion, whether it's education, whether it's financial, economics, everything is attached to voting. So no matter what you care about, right? Housing, inflation, all the things are attached to voting. And these are the people that are making decisions for you. And when you do not vote, they are voting. And who is a they? They. They're voting, and they're voting for you on your behalf, and they might not value you, your life, your input, your energy, any of that. So don't give someone else power over your life.
Word. Well, Stephanie, we appreciate
Stephanie
you for
Young,
joining
the
us.
great Stephanie Young.
And it's the